Hi, we're about to have a look at a WordPress website built with Elementor and converted to a site using only Gutenberg blocks. But before we do, let's have a look at InstaWP. InstaWP is the perfect solution if you need to spin up a WordPress site in the blink of an eye and do some testing. There's really nothing like it. You can get started today for free right here at instawp.io. Hello there. My name is Bud Kraus for InstaWP. And I'm going to show you how to convert a WordPress website made with the Elementor plugin to the default Gutenberg block editor. Now, before you embark on a project like this, ask yourself a few questions. What exactly are your objectives? What are you trying to accomplish doing this? What are your skills? How well do you know Elementor? And how well do you know Gutenberg, the block editor? That's certainly going to impact on how successful you're going to be in making this kind of a change to your website. Now, how much time do you have to complete this project? Inevitably, you're going to find the deeper you get into this project, the more time it's going to take. And going along with this, what kind of budget do you have to complete this project? Now, this video is very much about methodology, and as it turns out, there is just no one way to do this because no two websites are the same. And there is no plugin to use that will do this for you. So it's a lot of thinking through in advance of exactly how you're going to change an Elementor site to Gutenberg. The very first thing I do is examine carefully the Elementor site. And by that I mean I pay particular attention to whether or not theme, fonts, and colors are being used, the global settings found in Elementor, what kind of page layouts are being used, typography, font, color, all of which I take very careful notes, some of which you're about to see. And as it will turn out, some sites are very well constructed and some are not, and in the latter case, you've got more work to do. I also look at the templates being used for the Elementor site. Was the theme builder used? How was it used for headers, footers, and repeating content? And I also look at the use of dynamic content. What kind of content and where was it used? Now, for the project I'm about to show you, the Elementor site only has Elementor and Elementor Pro, along with the 2021 theme. And for my conversion site, for the block editor site, I use the GeneratePress ecosystem. More about that in 1 second. I also used no other plugins. I wanted to see how far I could get to match the Elementor site just using GeneratePress. And last, I decided not to use any custom code. Then I created an HTML outline of my homepage. Now there's different ways of doing this, and I used this chart, and in this case, in the first column, we have these rows over here, and the second column, and so forth. As it turns out, you can see the HTML is not very well formed, and then I had to make a decision whether or not I was going to make changes for the block editor site or just leave it as is, and I decided to leave it pretty much as is. And I went through all the other pages and made a similar outline. Now, if this way of creating an HTML outline does not look familiar to you, then you could use something like this, which might look a little more familiar. And the next step, I took my Elementor site and made a clone. And it's in the second site that I made all the conversion changes that I needed. So I will end up with two different sites. I did not make the changes within the Elementor site. It wouldn't make any sense to do it that way. Now, as far as my theme goes, I picked GeneratePress because it's a fantastic theme as it gives me maximum flexibility in terms of layout, color, typography, plus provides functionality built into the theme as well as the entire ecosystem that comes along with Generate Premium and Generate Blocks, which I'll get to in 1 minute. Now, do you have to use GeneratePress? No, you can use any theme such as Astra or Cadence as long as it gives you a full set of design tools that you'll need to mimic the Elementor site. In addition to the theme, which is free, I highly recommend that you purchase the GP Premium plugin. And then you're going to want the Generate Blocks and Generate Blocks Pro to round out the GeneratePress ecosystem. Now you'll get 6 additional blocks And these are very similar to the default blocks that come with Gutenberg, but they're only better. So I highly recommend that you use Generate Blocks, which is free. The Generate Blocks Pro, there is a fee for that, and it provides special effects, animation, and it really makes GeneratePress much more of a full-featured design system. And what's nice about these two plugins is they'll work with any theme, not just GeneratePress. One thing you should know is that Elementor has a certain structure that applies for every page throughout the site. Every page will have at least one section. Each section will have at least a column. Here you see two different columns. And the columns are nothing more than containers for widgets. And a column could have more than one widget. GeneratePress has a different structure. It has a container. Inside the container is a grid. I think of that as a row. Grids will have at least one container, very similar to columns in Elementor. And then, of course, the containers will have blocks, very much like widgets in Elementor. Time now to look at the Elementor site and the Gutenberg site and see how I made the conversion. So here we are on the site built with Elementor. This is the home page. If I refresh this over here, you'll see that this image expands, and we've got this button over here which does more than just roll over. We've got a shape divider over here. We've got this line that animates here, which I wasn't able to reproduce on the Gutenberg site. We've got some images that zoom on hover. Here's something I wasn't able to reproduce as well, which is these images move when I'm scrolling up, and I was not able to do anything with that as well. So let's look at the Gutenberg version of this page. And I was not able to do anything with this image, but button's pretty good. And shape divider, again, nothing's moving over here, as I've said. And here looks pretty good. The spacing looks pretty good compared to the home page. And that's about it. Let's take a look at the About page on the Elementor site. So here we are on the Elementor site. Let's go to the About page. And you did see this background with the movement. And we'll scroll down here. We've got a diagonal design. Again, we've got this effect over here of these moving image. So if I hover over an image, I also see that the titling for the image is highlighted as well. And here's a parallax effect that I was not able to do as well in the converted Gutenberg site. Let's have a look at that. So let's go to About. And not exactly the same, but pretty close. Now when I hover over these images, I don't get this effect at the same time. So there's a two-step action over here, whereas the Elementor site, it was just one hover and you get two different actions. No parallax. All right, let's take a look at the blog archive now on the Elementor site. So blog archive page, we'll have a look. And I noticed that if I hover over these gray areas, it does change color. And I can see the design over here. Let's look at the Elementor version of this. Not exactly the same. Especially the spacing over here didn't quite come out the way it should have. And the gray also was not the same. It's just not quite as good as the Elementor, but very close. Now let's go back to the Elementor site and have a look at just one blog post as an example. And it's pretty straightforward design, two-column layout. Let's see what I did with the Gutenberg site. I'll go back over there and let's have a quick look at that. And it's pretty identical as you would expect because the design is fairly simple and there's no animated moving parts. The very next step was to create a page and post template for the entire site. Let's go have a look at that. And for that, what I did using the GeneratePress theme, which has a feature called Elements, I set up my page and post template, and that's going to apply across the entire site as you see over here. Let's just take a look at that. There's really not much to it. First, I define the fact that there aren't going to be any sidebars on all of the pages and posts. Next, in the footer, I kept the default. As far as disable elements go, I changed a few over here. And then over here in content, I chose the full width for the content area, no padding, and that's fine. And then as far as where I was to display this, it's going to be across the entire site. Now with that in place, I then moved on to settings in the customizer. Let me show you. All right, and the first thing I did is in site identity, I put in my logo right over here at the upper left-hand corner. That was fine. Then I moved on to my menu, which is right over here, and I set that up. That's a very simple menu in the primary navigation area. And this has the About page, the blog archive, and the 3 blog posts. And they're all up over here, as you can see. Next, I moved into layout. And for that, I focused on the primary navigation. And I wanted that to float to the right, which it did over here. And there's a whole lot of other settings here. No need to get into that now, but essentially I wanted it to float to the right, and it does. And then over here in the header, I set that up as well. I wanted the center and full width and so on, and a couple of other settings there. All right, with those basic layout settings in place, I then moved on to color and typography. But before I did that, here's what I did. I put together a chart of all the style properties that I found in the Elementor site. So what I did was list all of my elements over here, the style properties over here, and then I filled in the various style property values as you see over here. Now you don't have to do it exactly like this, but I do recommend that you collect all this information and put it in one place so that you can refer to it and use it when you implement your styling for the Gutenberg site. And that's exactly what I'm going to do in the next step when I put in my color and typography settings in the customizer. So let's see how I did that. Here I am in the color section of the customizer, and I set up my global colors. I set up the colors for the body. Here's the background, text. You see the link colors over here and so on. And then for the buttons over here, I set up colors like so, with the initial color and the hover background color, and then the text initial color and the hover color. And with buttons, and then I went on to the content area. When you see something like this, that means it's an inherited color. Nothing to do. And what I did do is right over here, for the H4, it has a different color setting, so I just designated the color setting like so. Then I went on to the typography settings, and there's only 2 different typefaces used. One is Racing Sand 1, and then the other is Helvetica. And I then went on to apply those fonts like so. So here I have for the body, it's Helvetica. And if I just click on this over here, you can see there's a full set of options to set the typography for the body. And over here in the content area, I have these different headings. And you have H1, H2, H3. H4 is a little bit different. It's using Helvetica instead of Racing Sand 1. Well, now that I've got my page and post template set up as well as the customizer settings in place, let me show you a very simple demonstration of how I converted a single blog post. And here is a single blog post on the Elementor site. And I actually have 3 here, and I'm only going to convert 1. They're all the same, and they're all very simple. You've got the post title, a featured image, publication date, and right over here some lorem placeholder text. Now, one thing I want to say before I show you the Gutenberg side of things is that you really don't want to begin the conversion process until you do all the spade work that I've shown up to this point. Okay, let's go look at that Gutenberg post. And here it is. and it's got some work to do. I notice it's got the comment box showing, and this is just not right. Where's my featured image? Where's my title? Well, let's get to it. And here we are in the Gutenberg editor for this post. Before I do anything, I just want to check some settings over here. So post, and we're going to look over here, active elements. And I am using the template that I created earlier, that is the page and post template that I'm using for every page and post on the site. I scroll down a bit more. The featured image is in place because that came over from the Elementor site. That wasn't anything I had to do. And then over here, discussions, I don't want to allow comments. So I'm just going to change that over here. And let's close this over here. And let's look at what we have in list view. And we see we have everything inside of the classic block. Now, why is that? When I removed the Elementor plugin, all the content for the site gets automatically placed inside of the classic block. This is the classic WordPress editor before Gutenberg. It's not going to do me any good as I transition the site to Gutenberg. What I need to do is use this function over here, convert to blocks. This will be very useful for you no matter what page or post you're working on. And now I've got 3 different blocks, and that's exactly what I expected. Of course, they're all paragraph blocks. Now, I'm going to close this over here, and I'm going to start changing some of the structure of the page by inserting a container block. Now, the container block comes from the GeneratePress block plugin. That's good, and I want to insert right over here the post title. And I'm going to make that an H1. And I know what you're thinking, and then I'm going to put this in the center, like so, okay? Now, why am I doing this? Well, no one's going to see this. This is hidden, and this is the operative title that people are going to see. And I do this because it's a lot easier to style and work with compared to this standard title that you see over here. So with that in place, let's look at that list view again. And right after post title, what I want to do is insert another block right here, and I'm going to insert another container right like so, and inside of that container I'm going to divide that up into columns by using the grid block that you see right over here. And the grid block is also another block that comes with GeneratePress blocks, and it's a 50-50 split. That's fine for now. I can always adjust that later. And in here, I'm going to put in my featured image. That's fine. And over here on this side over here, what I'm going to do is drag these 3 paragraphs, like so, right into the container block, like this. And then right before that first paragraph, I'm also going to insert before. And I want to put in the post publication date right here, okay? And we're in good shape. So let's close list view and have a preview of our post. Now let's flip over to the Elementor page and see how this looks by comparison. And you can see there's quite a bit of spacing above the post title. Let's flip over to the Gutenberg version, and you can see not as much spacing, and there's other things I could do to make this look more like the Elementor page. Now, one thing you should take note of, when you do something like this, let's go to list view. Let's fold this all up into the single container over here. Turn this into a reusable block. Right over here, create a reusable block, give it a name, and save it. And that way you can insert that into the other posts that you're going to be using the same format. That's going to save you a lot of time. Always think about using reusable blocks and templates to speed up your workflow as you convert a website from Elementor to Gutenberg. So in summing up, use the GeneratePress theme, or at least a theme that provides a robust design system. That's a must. Also, if you want to make an exact match from the Elementor site, no doubt you're going to have to use custom CSS and JavaScript. Finally, the method I showed you is really good for a small site. Now, if you're going to be working on a site with thousands of pages, you're going to have to take a different approach and probably begin with a script that will convert all the content to HTML files and begin from that point. Hopefully what I've just shown you will help you develop your own method to convert an Elementor site to Gutenberg.